2 weeks after its alternate lies about and celebrations of Charlie Kirk's assassination, the left is now promoting the equally ridiculous narrative that the LDS church shooter was a MAGA supporter from the right. I'm Michael Knowles. This is the Michael Knowles Show. Welcome back to the show. The first ever AI actress to be signed by a talent agency has come to Hollywood. Some people are worried about AI taking over everything. I, for one, think this is great because this will now lead fewer girls to become actresses and ruin their lives. But anyway, we'll get to what this means for Hollywood and for the rest of the jobs. First, though, I want to tell you about Balance of Nature. Go to balanceofnature.com, use promo code Knowles. Life gets busy. Do you remember to reorder your supplements every month? Is that top of your list? It's just one more thing on your already packed to-do list. That is why you need to become a Balance of Nature preferred customer. And here is why it's a game changer. Your supplements show up like clockwork every 28 days, right to your doorstep. Or if you're like me, they show up to your office, and you think that that's nice because then you get it direct, except that the hyenas around the DailyWire are going to try to steal your Balance of Nature. So you got to go to the desk and get it really quickly. You got to get it first. You don't need to remember to reorder. No running out, just happens automatically. No hunting for deals, no promo codes, no stress. Plus shipping is totally free every month. Now, you know what really sold me? You get your own personal health coach. Someone who checks in, cheers you on, and helps you stay on track with your goals. They look at the whole picture, body, mind, and spirit. Easiest routines are the ones you don't have to think about. When it's automatic, it's consistent. When it's consistent, it sticks. You handle life. Balance of Nature handles the rest. Right now, you can become a preferred customer and lock in wholesale pricing with free shipping every month. Go to balanceofnature.com, use promo code Knowles, KNWLES, for 35% off your first order as a preferred customer, plus get a free bottle of fiber and spice. That's balanceofnature.com, promo code Knowles. Here it is. Stop the presses. The libs can't print this fast enough. Mormon church shooter had a Trump sign outside his house. That is from the Daily Beast. The rest of the liberal media have similar headlines. And it is clear what they are trying to do is create a counterbalance to the leftist assassination of Charlie Kirk. So you're going to say, okay, some guy who we initially tried to lie about and say was a MAGA Republican, Jimmy Kimmel was suspended for it. Okay, that guy, I guess, fine, we have to admit he was kind of on the left. But then a right-winger went out and shot up a Mormon church. See, he had a Trump sign in his yard. But look at the subheader here that even the Daily Beast had to admit. Authorities stressed that they have yet to identify a motive for the attack on the Mormon church amid social media speculation. Now, that's kind of strange, isn't it? The subheader says the authorities don't have a motive, and yet the header, in much bigger font, says Mormon church shooter had a Trump sign outside his house. Do you see the distinction between these two things? In the case of the left-wing assassin who murdered Charlie Kirk, it is eminently clear from the engravings on the bullet casings, from the messages that the shooter allegedly sent to his trans furry boyfriend, from the fact that he had a trans furry boyfriend, it is very clear that the shooting was directly related to his left-wing ideology. In the case of the LDS church shooting, there is no indication whatsoever that his alleged reported Trump support had anything to do with the shooting. No evidence at all. Even the Daily Beast has to admit it. That's the difference. It'd be like saying a Mormon church shooter wore a blue shirt. Therefore, it was his blue shirt that motivated him. No, of course not. And it wouldn't make sense. Mormons are overwhelmingly Republican. They're generally rather conservative right-wing people. There's no through line there at all. Whereas a left-winger assassinating one of the most prominent right-wingers in the popular culture does have a connection, even if the shooter had not explicitly admitted his ideological motivations, which he did. Even on the bullets. Hey, fascist, catch. We'll get to more of that in a second. The White House press secretary, Karoline Leavitt, went on Fox News to explain the motivations that the authorities believe they see in the shooting as of now.
From what I understand, based on my conversations with the FBI director, all they know right now is this was an individual who hated people of the Mormon faith. And they are trying to understand more about this, how premeditated it was, how much planning went into it, whether he left a note. All of those questions have yet to be answered, but certainly will be answered by the FBI.
Okay, so this is an easy inference to make, but the White House is now confirming it, namely that the shooter, the guy who shot up the Mormon church and had an accelerant that set fire to the church, that it turns out he hated Mormons, which is crazy to me, just on its face. Of all the groups to hate, Mormons are some of the nicest people on earth. They're totally inoffensive in their behavior. They have nice children. They have nice places. Big families. So the fact that this guy hated Mormons is curious in itself. I'm sure more will come out in the investigation. But the takeaway, obviously, is there is no connection whatsoever between this guy's voting habits, affinity or lack of affinity for Donald Trump or anything else, and the shooting. It'd be like saying he drove there in a Toyota Camry. Therefore, this is a Toyota-related violence. There's no connection. The same would be true if a left-wing shooter set fire to a building or murdered people, but did not have a direct connection. If a left-wing shooter went in and shot up a Burger King because he hates the Whopper, not because he has a Joe Biden or Kamala Harris sign in his yard, you would say, okay, that isn't necessarily left-wing ideological violence. If, however, the left engraves Antifa slogans on its bullets and confesses in texts that left-wing ideology is what's motivating the shooting, then you have to come to a different conclusion. In any case, any reasonable person has to conclude there is no equivalence between these two things. Desperate as the left is right now to identify an example of right-wing terrorism, amid the research that's come out, amid the other headlines, even from The Atlantic, which says that after 30 years, there's a major left-wing terror problem. As they're so desperate for it, they have yet to find it. The other big difference, by the way, look at the reactions. Look at the reactions to the shooting. On the left, you had the mainstream left in academia, on TV, even in political office, accepting, excusing, justifying, even celebrating Charlie Kirk's assassination. On the right, every single person condemns the Mormon church shooting. Just one more little example. And furthermore, Trump comes out and he says this appears to be yet another targeted attack on Christians in the United States of America. No equivalence. Left-wing terror increases. Right-wing terror, happily, I suppose we would say, nowhere to be found. Now, speaking of murderous leftists, some information has come out about a left-wing attack from a few years ago. Do you remember when the left-wing guy traveled across the country to try to murder Brett Kavanaugh in his home with his family? Could have murdered his entire family as well. Well, that guy, I'm not going to even say his name. I'll say his first name, not his last name. That guy was known as Nicholas. That was his name. There's a case, United States versus Nicholas, and then his last name. However, the DailyWire managed to break the story about how Nicholas today goes by Sophie. Here we go again. I won't read this whole court motion, but I'll read this footnote here at the end. The case is captioned as United States versus Nicholas, so-and-so. That name remains Ms. So-and-so's legal name, and she has not asked to recaption the case. Out of respect for Ms. So-and-so, the balance of this pleading and counsel's in-court agreement will refer to her as Sophie and use female pronouns. It's always the ones you most expect. Add that to, I wasn't even counting on that one being a case of trans political violence. But it is. It's always the ones you most expect. I'm not being glib about this. I'm not trying to be cute. There is a reason that so many of the great horror, thriller, slasher movies ever have as the monster, because it's a monstrous ideology that turns the self against the self, that actually rips the self asunder, and that enacts a kind of ritual suicide in the death of the natural person and the supposed rebirth of the new identity. After which one refers to one's true self, natural self, as a dead name, an actual ritual suicide. It is no wonder that people who hold that kind of an ideology, that kind of an identity, might be a little disconnected from reality, might be a little bit violent. This is important. All of this is very important because when even the liberal outlets are admitting that there's a left-wing violence problem, it's a good opportunity to have a national reckoning on it and to try to figure out why that is. Why do certain identities and even certain political ideologies more naturally lend themselves to violence? This is going to be the topic of my speech at Harvard Law School on Thursday. I'm going up to Harvard Law. If you're in the Boston area, come on by. You can find tickets. Just Google it, Michael Knowles, Harvard Law School. I'm sure there are websites to reserve your seats. Even if you're not in the Boston area, come on, travel on up. It's going to be a good time. This is going to be the topic of the speech. I think it's a good venue for it because, as we said at the top of the show, there are liberals who are desperately trying to suggest that political violence is a both sides issue, and we just need to bring the temperature down on all sides. And that just isn't the case. It is uniquely a left-wing phenomenon right now. And the only way to stop the political violence is to focus our attention where it is, and that is on the political left. So anyway, we'll get into that up at Harvard if you're in the area, or if you now plan to be in the area. I look forward to seeing you on Thursday. Now, speaking of the trans issue, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth just totally destroyed with facts and logic a pro-trans Congresslady. We'll get to that momentarily. First, I want to tell you about NeuroGum. Go to neurogum.com. Use promo code Knowles. Do you ever feel like you're running on empty? Running high. Well, if you're just staring at your screen, hitting that afternoon crash, debating another coffee or an energy drink, you know that you will regret. You got to check out NeuroGum and Mints. Neuro's energy and focus gum and mints give you clean, focused energy without the crash, sugar, or sketchy ingredients. It is the easiest upgrade you can make to your wellness and energy routine. Especially for me, I travel all the time. I don't sleep. I'm in different time zones. Sometimes you want the coffee. Sometimes occasionally one of those little pouches kind of thing. Well, get the NeuroGum instead. Neuro also offers caffeine-free options for all-day wellness support. Neuro's memory and focus gum are made with American ginseng to support mental clarity minus the jitters. Neuro's sleep and recharge mints offer melatonin and chamomile to help you unwind and rest without pills or sugary gummies. For a limited time, you get 20% off your first order at neurogum.com using code Knowles, KNWLES. That's neurogum.com, code Knowles, KNWLES, for 20% off your first order. You can also find Neuro at CVS and Amazon. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth was just debating the trans issue, specifically trans in the military, with some Democrat pro-trans Congresslady, Sara Jacobs. Did not go well for the Democrat Congresslady.
Because if it were, you would be keeping these women in. Instead, you are the one injecting culture wars into the military, and it's at the detriment of our military readiness and national security. Now, General Kane, I'd like to turn to you.
So to be clear, these are men who think they're women.
These are women. I'm happy to educate you on
but these are men,
on trans
and so
issues at another
what we've
time.
identified is that there's mental health issues with that belief system.
I'd like to turn to General
are
Kane
detrimental
now.
to readiness, and that's the determination that we've made and that we stand behind. Gender dysphoria.
And so you don't.
Pete Hegseth with the patience of a saint. This woman, she's referring to the men who have sexual confusion as women, and she says, if you kick these women, these mentally ill men, out of the military, you will be compromising military readiness. Pete comes in, he says, oh, you're talking about the men, right? You're talking about the guys who think they're ladies? He says, they're women. I'm happy to educate you, Mr. Hegseth, Secretary of War with degrees from Princeton and Harvard. So even by our own credential standard, you're well educated. And I'm going to educate you on why me. And Pete just totally knocks it down. He says, yeah, we have identified mental health issues with that belief system that are contrary to military readiness. So we stand by our conclusion. Very diplomatic way to put it. a diplomatic way and a clinical way to put what we all know to be true, which is that guys who are totally nuts are not good for the military. Guys who, in their supposed treatment, will be injecting their bodies with foreign hormones, contrary to their nature, probably not going to be great for readiness. Guys who want to lower their testosterone, probably not the best fit to be G.I. Joe. That's all he's saying. And the Democrat Congresslady, she must think it's 2021 or something. I don't know. I don't think she has noticed the sea change. We've had enough of this. I think we're exhausted. Not just the political right, but I think the middle, I think the ordinary American. I think we've had enough of this. The moment that the libs at a real national scale tried to trans little kids, that was the beginning of the end of the transgender issue. That's a complete loser for Democrats. I hope they keep running on this. I hope they keep yapping about it. We're going to play it in the midterms. We're going to manage to hold the House if we pursue that, if they pursue that strategy and we follow them up. The notion of both sides, political violence, keep yapping about it. It isn't true. And we've had enough of that. We're not going to entertain that anymore. We have entertained a lot of these things. Pete Hegseth still demonstrating the patience of a saint, but that's over. No more trans stuff. It's nuts. It's completely nuts. And the people who hold to that belief system are totally nuts. And the only charitable thing to do is admit that truth and try to help them see reality. And the violent domestic terrorists are on the left. They're just on the left. They're not on the right. They're not. They're on the left. And so the charitable thing to do, the smart thing, the patriotic thing for our country is to recognize that fact and ruthlessly suppress violent leftist organizations and ideologies and exclude them from the public square and prosecute them where appropriate. We're not going to pretend anymore. I know it might make the mainstream normie lib happy, feel good about himself to hear that, oh, it's really both sides. I know it might make the ideologue or the sexual deviant or the person with a trans identifying cousin or whatever maybe feel kind of nice if we pretend that chopping up your body has no effect on your fitness for the U.S. military. But we're done pretending. Okay, we've had enough. You can just feel it. It's in the air. And if Democrats want to keep running on that, be my guest. Be my guest. They're never going to take a house of this government again. Now, speaking of Trump administration officials, Gavin Newsom is trying to launch his own presidential campaign. And so he keeps hitting the Trump administration. And his press team, specifically, is trying to troll the Trump administration to get attention, even if it's negative attention, like a petulant little toddler. So the Gavin Newsom press office, which is a real account actually run by Gavin Newsom, tweets out, all caps, this was 3-4 days ago, Stephen Miller is a fascist. Why did he tweet this? Why did Gavin Newsom, governor of California, would-be Democrat nominee in 2028, why did he tweet this? What is the semantic value of this statement? Is it that Stephen Miller is a fascist? He's not. He's an ordinary conservative American who happens to work for the administration as deputy chief of staff. Is it that Gavin Newsom just doesn't like Stephen Miller? So fascist is just one of those words like racist or bigot or Nazi that just doesn't indicate anything precisely other than that the person uttering the phrase doesn't like you. There's a little bit to that. But really, in the context of the past couple weeks, what that phrase indicates is, I want to do you harm, or I want other people to do you harm. Because the political context here, and I promise you, Gavin Newsom is aware of political context. The political context here is that the biggest national trauma that we have suffered in decades involved a person on Gavin Newsom's side of the aisle shooting Charlie Kirk to death with a bullet that had "Hey Fascist" catch engraved on it. That's the political context. And Gavin Newsom knows that. He reads the news. He follows the big cases. He knew Charlie Kirk. Think about what a psycho this guy is and his team is. He knew Charlie Kirk. He begged to be friends with Charlie Kirk because he thought that having Charlie Kirk on his podcast would help moderate his image. And now Gavin Newsom, through official accounts, is making a joke, at best, making a joke about the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And more precisely, he's calling for the same thing to happen to the deputy White House chief of staff. What a psycho. The people who run that account, up to and including Gavin Newsom himself, are the kind of people who celebrated Charlie's death. This is part of the we've had enough, okay, something's got to change shift. We're 2 weeks out. Immediately after the shooting, there were these awful responses. The Jimmy Kimmel to lie, to make light, to celebrate. Then there was some blowback for that. But even 2 weeks out, the left is doubling down. And it's not just some fringe guy on Twitch. It's not just some random social media account. It's not some nobody. It's arguably the leading candidate for president on the Democrat side in 2028. He's saying, hey, remember what they did to Charlie? You should do that to Stephen Miller too. Yeah. As if to say, the insinuation being that the murder of Charlie Kirk was a good thing. It was a good thing. And we should joke about it and we should call for more of it. And it's not just Gavin Newsom who's doing that. You're seeing that throughout the left, in the media, in the private sector, in the government sphere, all over the place. But it's up to and including Gavin Newsom. Shows you, yikes. The normie Democrat Party is celebrating and calling for more political violence against the most mainstream conservatives, including those who don't hold public office. We've never seen anything like that in our country. We've never seen anything like that. That is a scary position to be in. Now, speaking of learning nothing from the Charlie Kirk assassination, Jimmy Kimmel is uncanceled. That's unfortunate. And at least one major left-wing voice has some questions about it. We'll get to that in a second. First, I want to tell you about YAF. It is shocking that more people have not heard of YAF's National Journalism Center. There is not a more consequential and important pipeline from college into conservative media than NJC. It boasts a 12-week internship training program that is fully paid, gives you access to the best reporters and personalities in the business, and the most handsome, by the way. Many people are saying it. It also sticks you right in a working newsroom in the first week. You want to be at the center of the nation's biggest political stories? NJC is the fastest way to do it. We've had reporters here at the DailyWire who've attended NJC and launched their professional careers immediately. Our NJC alumni have pursued stories relentlessly, like taking pictures from a helicopter to expose a dodgy Texas community development marketed exclusively to illegal aliens. Their reporting was featured on Ben's show, more importantly on my show, on the whole Daily Wire, on Fox News, and a host of other prominent media outlets. This reporting from Daily Wire's NJC alum has created real, tangible change and put concrete wins on the board for American patriots. It all traces back to NJC's Internship Journalism Boot Camp, which covers everything you need to break into media, whether you're interested in podcasting, video production, print reporting, or independent journalism. More importantly, if you're tired of the fake news liberal media and you want to win, get off the sidelines into the game. Submit your application to the National Journalism Center today. Charlamagne, the radio host, kind of focuses on a black audience, on a liberal audience, but he's a big radio host. Charlamagne just reacted to Jimmy Kimmel's tears, what I think most of us use Jimmy Kimmel's crocodile tears. Jimmy Kimmel being uncanceled. Here's what he had to say.
I didn't like the tears. You know why I didn't like the tears?
What? You thought they were fake?
Because he cried when he mentioned Charlie Kirk.
Yeah.
He didn't cry 2 weeks ago or a week ago when he got...
I think he was crying that people thought he would celebrate the death of. Yeah. Like, that is what hurt him. Is like, how would you think I'm that kind of guy?
Yeah, that's how...
He should have said that, though. No, I feel like he should have said that because it felt like he was just trying to do some performative emotion.
If he's that good of a crier on command, he should act.
I mean, he has that. He was acting forever. The Man Show.
The Man Show wasn't acting, dude. I'm talking about... Jesus Christ.
It was acting.
No, it wasn't.
The Man Show?
It wasn't acting. That was
you think that's just what he was in his life?
That was a talk show.
That's just where he was in his moment. But no, he used to do sketches and stuff like that. Okay. He pretended to be Karl Malone, for God's sake.
That's true. That was great acting.
Oprah.
He should have got an Emmy for that.
It didn't bother me none. But my point is, I felt like when he was getting emotional, he was doing that to show like the other side, hey, I do care. You know, and then he did like the apology, not an apology. You thought he said, I'm sorry. That's how the tone sounded.
Yeah, the tone felt apologetic.
But he never said, I'm sorry.
Charlamagne, 100% correct. Both the radio host and the grandson of Charles Martel, both of them 100% correct. Jimmy Kimmel was fake crying. He worked himself up. He put on a good performance. But Charlamagne's point is, hold on, why weren't you crying when Charlie got murdered? When Charlie got murdered, Jimmy Kimmel comes on screen and goes, hey, yeah, you know, the MAGA people this weekend, they were talking about that guy who murdered Charlie Kirk, and they were just trying to pretend he wasn't one of them. And he told this joke. Then, after he got canceled, and he had to audition for his job again to Sinclair and Nexstar, Jimmy Kimmel comes out and goes, I was so moved by the memorial of the man whose death I mocked and lied about egregiously. And if you're a real Christian, you'll support me getting my show back. Otherwise, you're a fake Christian. Totally right, Charlamagne. 100% right. Jimmy Kimmel, man. It's not that he was ever all that high in my estimation. I would get a kick out of the Man Show a little bit. But he's declined in recent years. And at this point, like as an entertainer, the guy's dead to me. I mean, it's just so craven. It's so vulgar. It's just pathetic. And this is the issue. When you've got The Atlantic admitting that the left has a terrorism problem, the left has a terrorism problem. When you have one of the most popular liberal broadcasters in the entire country admitting that Jimmy Kimmel's crying crocodile tears, saying that the left doesn't really care about the murder of Charlie Kirk. When you got that guy say, then it's probably true, isn't it? And that's a problem that's not going away. No one's improving. They're keeping up all the rhetoric. One of the things that was most offensive about the reaction to Charlie's murder, there were many parts of it, is that the left murdered Charlie, and then the left excused and justified and celebrated Charlie's murder. And then the left got on its soapbox and yelled at the right to bring down the temperature. That's where you didn't even hear the right say to the left, which was celebrating Charlie's death. You didn't even hear the right say, hey, we should bring down the temperature. The whole thing existed on the left. The murder, the excuse, the justification, the celebration, and the scolding somehow. Somehow the scolding also came from the left. And Jimmy Kimmel, listen, right-wingers, give me my show back or you're fake Christians. It all just came from the left. Bring the temperature down. You understand we don't control the thermostat? Do you understand that? I would keep the temperature at a balmy 69 degrees. You're the ones who are taking control of the thermostat. We can't turn the temperature down while you are still defending and celebrating and the death of right-wingers, the killing of right-wingers, and calling for more violence. We can't, you're blocking the thermostat. And then you have the temerity to yell at us to bring the temperature down. We can't. In a battle, the other side has a say. And you guys are saying we won't. It's true. It's true. It's like they're taking our hands, they're smacking our hands into our faces. They're saying, why are you hitting yourself? Why are you hitting yourself? You're the one doing it. If you want that to stop, you can stop it, but they don't want it to stop. And that's the reality that we have to deal with. I don't know if you're on TikTok. I'm not. Although I was reliably informed. I heard this in the member block yesterday. I've been reliably informed by a number of my Zoomer friends that there are Michael Knowles thirst traps going around on TikTok, which means obviously these women on TikTok, these young women and probably some homosexual men who are making they've got great taste. That's obviously with that. But I avoid TikTok, which is why I avoid videos like this lady calling all of us fascists.
Hey, I know. Let's play a game. The game is called You Know You're a Fascist When. You know you're a fascist when you chant freedom while cheering for mass deportations without due process. You know you're a fascist when you think banning books and gutting universities is saving America. You know you're a fascist when you believe soldiers should be loyal to a person, but not the Constitution. You know you're a fascist when you demand law and order unless the law is investigating your favorite politicians. You know you're a fascist when you want to lock up opponents, but pardon your own criminals. You know you're a fascist when you think elections are rigged unless your guy wins. You know you're a fascist when you call yourself a patriot while rooting for a third term like it's a third world dictatorship. You know you're a fascist when you call the press the enemy because they told the truth.
I wonder how much of the recent political shift, the shift to the right that gave Trump the popular vote, the shift to the right that moved young voters 10 points in 2024, I wonder how much of the shift owes to this woman and everyone like her and all the people who use that kind of tone of voice and that kind of argumentation. You're actually kind of, did you? We've had enough of that. That thing, whatever that thing is, that dominated for like 20 years. I would say that in the classroom, in the workplace, that tone, that affect, that condescension, that utterly ignorant condescension, totally fact-free, that dominated throughout the public square for about 20 years. We've had enough of that. I love women. I adore women. I do. I don't have a misogynistic bone in my body. But ladies like that, they need to get off TikTok. They need to stop commenting in the public square. Someone needs to stop them for their own good, to stop that kind of discourse. We're done with that, especially because the semantic value of calling someone a fascist now is a more extreme version of what it's always been. The reason that the left calls people fascists, and especially Nazis, is to justify violence against them. If you had the opportunity to stop Hitler, would you take it? The answer is supposed to be yes. And if you could stop Hitler, but you had to use some immoral means, you had to, commit murder, or you had to do anything would be justified, right? Stopping Hitler could be accomplished by any means necessary in the popular conception. So that's what it means. If you call someone a fascist, or especially a Nazi, what it means is, hey, you can be killed, and it would be good if you were killed. That's always what it has meant. Since the assassination of Charlie, that's quite explicitly what it means. It's a direct tie-in. And we're not going to tolerate empty-headed people casually throwing this around anymore. Because there are immediate consequences to that now that are extreme consequences. A lot depends upon it. And silly, frivolous people like that woman on TikTok cannot be trusted with political power and authority. We need to get serious again. It draws right back to what Pete was saying about the military. For a while, when we didn't think we had many national threats, we were in kind of a silly season geopolitically. Okay, we can tolerate some trannies in the military. Why not? We'll just have some social experiments. Okay. And yeah, we can all have a slumber party. And maybe the guys on the ship, they can have a pillow fight or something. Yeah, okay, whatever. Now that geopolitics is really heating up, now that Russia's really doubling down in Ukraine, the war in Gaza hasn't ending yet, China's licking its lips, looking at Taiwan, now that like real stuff's happening, we're going after the drug boats coming from Venezuela. Now that we got silly season's over and we got to get serious. And no, obviously we can't have transvestites in the military. That's ridiculous. And yeah, no, we're not going to, if you're inciting violence against the right, you're going to lose your job and you're going to be kicked out of polite society and you might go to jail. Sorry. We should have let you know it's serious again. And your frivolity is done. Your frivolity at best. There's no more time for that. Now, speaking of women on camera, the first ever AI actress to be signed by a talent agency has come to Hollywood. This October, we are giving DailyWire Plus members more than ever before, including must-see new documentaries like USS Cole, Al-Qaeda's Strike Before 9/11, premieres October 10th exclusively on DailyWire Plus, but I've got your first look right now.
Al-Awali told us Al-Qaeda is planning to attack a U.S. Navy ship as it's refueling in the port of Aden.
There was a lot of warning out there to the ships. Did the Cole get that information? I can't tell you.
Bin Laden was getting very antsy what could be next.
I don't think we missed any specific threats.
It wasn't if it was going to happen, it was when the United States was going to be attacked.
They were walking into a trap.
I saw a boat coming at us. They were close enough that I could see them smiling and waving. Then the explosion happened.
2 men in it was apparently not seen as a threat.
It may have been impossible to prevent.
Osama bin Laden had essentially declared war against the United States.
Certainly emboldened Al-Qaeda.
Why were we even operating in that port? What was the intelligence community doing?
No one connected all the dots until it was too late.
People in the U.S. didn't comprehend that there was an organization called Al-Qaeda. People living in caves, basements, who actively sought to kill Americans.
I think our government certainly had enough of the information to have done something.
They were focused totally on us. No one was looking up the chain of command.
We had an opportunity to disrupt what became 9/11.
USS Cole, Al-Qaeda's strike before 9/11. A 3-part series premieres October 10th on DailyWire Plus.
USS Cole, Al-Qaeda's strike before 9/11 premieres October 10th, only on DailyWire Plus. Not a member yet? Right now, get 40% off your new annual membership with code FALL40 at dailywireplus.com. It's autumnal season. Time for PSLs and for you to use code FALL40 to get your new Daily Wire subscription. My favorite comment yesterday is from Martin Gauthier, 7377, who says, there were no federal agents. Okay, there were a few of them, not a big deal. Okay, there were many, but it's a good thing. Yes, that the January, sorry, excuse me. I don't have a physical standing microphone here to lean into and say, January 6th, the worst day in the history of the world. We were told about January 6th. We were told no feds involved. This was an insurrection by the right. It's all Trump's fault. Then we found out, actually, Nancy Pelosi's taking responsibility for it spinning out of control. And, okay, maybe there were a few FBI agents. And we're told, okay, maybe there were a few dozen FBI agents. And now we're told there were about 250 of them. 250, 275. We're going to find out. It's good. They're all, every one of them. The Midwestern granny. They're all going to be FBI agents. It's going to be like the Gretchen Whitmer kidnapping plot. Remember that? We were told they're the right-wingers were trying to kidnap the Democrat governor of Michigan. Gretchen Whitmer, and then it found out there were feds. They were just all feds egging each other on, other than maybe one guy. It's like the Ku Klux Klan. The Ku Klux Klan at this point is all federal agents plus Billy Bob. There is one guy. It's like Billy Bob is a member of the Klan, but all the other ones are federal agents. That's what we're going to find out about January 6th. Okay. Speaking of women on camera. Tilly Norwood has taken over Hollywood. Tilly Norwood, she's young, she's hot, she's energetic, and she is not a real person. She is AI. There's a talent agency promoting her in Hollywood. The agency is claiming that Hollywood is really eager to work with it. I can't say her, to work with it. Here she is. Take it away, Tilly. So you can see there's a big monster behind Tilly. Now she's on it's pretty amazing. For those who are only listening, you have to see this later. The running is still a little bit weak, but she looks pretty real in all these different settings, in the superhero movie, in the old romance, in the drama, in the everything. She looks pretty good. The running is still a little messed up, but other than that, you would believe this. And who knows? The headline could be sensational, that Hollywood can't wait to work with this person. It's not a real person. But the broader story is obviously true. There will be AI properties that come into fashion, that are in vogue, they're in multiple movies. And that isn't all that surprising. So much of what we talk about when we say, the advent of AI or any new technology, we think of it as though it's some totally foreign thing, when really it's just the development of technologies that have been developing for millennia. Even down to AI, ruining our ability to think. People have been worrying about this since Plato. People have been worrying about this since, what isn't it, the Phaedrus? They've been worrying since there were books, since there were scrolls, because the fear of the books was that it would stop you from memorizing epic poems and philosophy works. Because now you could just look at it on paper, and then Google comes along, and then AI comes along, and it's all, it's just a continuum. Well, same thing here. There's no difference between Tilly Norwood and Mickey Mouse, right? Some agency can make up Tilly Norwood, and Disney can make up Mickey Mouse, and they're both just fictional properties. One just happens to look more like a human than the other ones. But this is happening. And the reason this will happen is because, I was talking to a film producer friend of mine, AI reduces the cost of making a film by an order of magnitude. I asked him, he's made a zillion films. I said, what is the actual effect of AI on filmmaking? He said, take away a zero. That's the effect. So just to save money, they're going to be using this kind of AI. Also, actors are crazy. They're crazy people. Actresses and actors, they're both crazy people and difficult to work with. Tilly Norwood's not difficult to work with. Also, actors and actresses can only work on one project at once. Even Morgan Freeman. You're the hardest working man in show business, but you can only do one project at once. Tilly Norwood can make 10 movies a day or more. There's no limit. Works as much as you want, does whatever you want. You don't need to negotiate with Tilly Norwood's agent. Well, you actually do, to figure out if Tilly Norwood is gonna show her breasts or something on camera. You actually would need to negotiate with the person who owns the IP. But it's the you're not sitting there with an actress saying, oh well, what's the limit? Or a guy, you're going to do your own stunts, or you just does whatever you want. So that's without question will happen. Maybe it's good in the sense that it will impel fewer people to go become actors and actresses themselves, because it's not a particularly distinguished life. But that's going to happen, and that's going to further a social trend that you especially see with pornography, but you see it with a lot of different internet subcultures, which is people spinning off more and more into their own fantasy worlds, less of a common culture and more niche tailored cultures for the desires and maybe aberrations of every individual. Right now, Sydney Sweeney can make 2 movies a year, whatever it is, 3 movies a year, and everyone will go see those movies. Tilly Norwood can make a movie for you in 10 minutes, and a different movie for your roommate, and a different movie for your neighbor. And so what I see AI doing, and she, I guess, is an example of that, is just further splitting off that common culture, which is a little tricky because for us right now, and this brings us all the way back to the political violence question, for us right now, the political challenge is reestablishing a common culture, at least a common culture, a common language. This is one of the issues with immigration. We don't even speak the same language anymore. Common standards, common norms. We don't respect the same taboos. We don't recognize the same moral system. All the stuff that the founders and framers and all the statesmen ever have said that we need, we don't recognize that. That's part of why it's so shocking that normie mainstream people on the left excused and even celebrated Charlie's murder. Is we saw that. We see the Gavin Newsom Twitter account. We see the talking heads on MSNBC. We see that and we say, oh man, shoot, you and I have nothing in common. Wow, you're my neighbor, you're my coworker, you're my cousin, but you and I have nothing in common. We can't even agree that murder is bad. So we've got this common culture fraying, which is just a broader, squishier way of talking about the fact that we no longer recognize a common good. And this has been ideologically advanced on both the left and the right. The left, which doubts the existence of good, period, says your good might not be my good, and we all have our own goods, and all that matters is maximizing our individual autonomy. And then the right, because it's been infused with so much libertarianism, saying, well, we're skeptical of this phrase common good, because if we recognize a common good, next up we're going to end up communist. Next up, we're going to give all of our money to the state. Next up, we're going to be marched off to the prison camp or something. No, we also will only pursue our private interest. And as a consequence, the culture just totally frays away. I'll show you an example of this, what this does to a culture. In Dearborn, Michigan, the Dearborn City Council just heard out a resident complaining that this increasingly Muslim town is blaring the Muslim prayers from the loudspeakers at 5:30 in the morning. And it's against city regulations, and it's waking people up, and it's weird because it's supposed to be America. Here's what she has to say. Guess what the city does?
But the mosques in East Dearborn are now at times waking us up at 5:30 in the morning with a call to prayer.
This is Dearborn resident Andrea Unger at last night's city council meeting stating that mosques using outdoor loudspeakers for their call to prayer should not be allowed, and says she believes it's not supposed to be allowed per city ordinance.
The noise complaints have been made out and the police have made numerous visits. What is the next step?
There was some question whether or not any outdoor loudspeakers are allowed, something that was not clarified, only that more evidence is being gathered. But CBS Detroit did examine Dearborn's noise ordinance and found that loudspeakers between the hours of 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. are in violation of the ordinance.
Okay, so this is the CBS clip here, local CBS clip. And they're saying, the Dearborn Council said more investigation is needed, but we looked into it, and it's obvious that the loudspeakers are not permitted, at least before 7 a.m. Yeah, I think they know that. I think they know that, and they don't care. This following the Dearborn mayor telling that resident, that ordinary resident, say, yeah, we don't like you. We don't want you here. You're not welcome in your own town anymore. We took over. It's our town now. Those Muslims in Dearborn, Michigan, they have a conception of the common good. I think they're mistaken about a lot of things, but they have a conception of a political society. They have a conception of a common good. They understand what community is. You don't. I'm not pointing fingers at you. If you're listening to this show, probably do, but Americans broadly don't. And when it's a political community with a strong sense of identity and a shared conception of the common good, when you have that versus a bunch of alienated, isolated individuals who used to have a country together but now don't really seem to share much of anything, guess which side is going to win? It's not even close. And those residents are going to be told, get out. It's not your town anymore. Shut up. We're playing our prayer over the loudspeaker. Our prayer is not your prayer. It's not the prayer of the religion that built our whole country. Yeah, too bad. It's ours now. Which is why if we want to preserve our freedom or liberty, we have to stop thinking in this shallow, sophomoric way of a purely individualist kind of liberty. Often licentiousness is really what they mean by it. And we need to think of the more exalted political liberty, the liberty to have a country, the liberty to have functioning cities, the liberty to have a community, to be able to establish families, to flourish. That exalted and ordered liberty is the only way that we're going to be able to resist our adversaries, our enemies, our rivals, the people who want to supplant us. It's the only way you can do it. And that's the one conception that the left, and even still to some degree the right, just doesn't seem to get. Okay, today is, on that chipper note, today is Tee Tuesday. The rest of the show continues now. You do not want to miss it. Become a member. Use code Knowles, KNWLES at checkout for 2 months free on all annual plans.